Hi, this is Nathan Murnack with Basecamp Country Real Estate. We are back with another segment from the Habitat Podcast hosted by Jared Van Hees with his guest Tom James, the National Sales Manager of Basecamp Country Real Estate. In this segment of episode 78, Tom talks through his favorite clover blends and his approach on clover plot management. We thank you for listening in and hope you enjoy this segment.
Now, what kind of clover varieties do you like when it comes to frost seeding?
I'll tell you what, there's some really good ones out there. And I've got to be careful how I say this because we are in some really great relationships with some seed companies.
Oh, sure.
And,
no, I just mean like white or red or mammoth.
Yeah.
You don't have to go into brand names, but just whatever kind of different color, or, that type of deal.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of the improved white intermediate clovers. And that would be, the hybrids between Ladino and Dutch whites. You've got those intermediate clovers, and I don't mind throwing out some names. I'm happy. I can tell you that we've been really, really satisfied and just blown away with the production levels and the year after year return and the competition as far as how it holds its own against some weed competition and tough grass competition is the Pennington seed varieties of both the Durana and the Patriot clovers. I'm just a super huge fan of those. And they're a short clover, so they don't get real tall and stemmy. They don't have the lignin in the stems that you would see in hay production type clovers that get kind of, as we talk about, that cellulose builds up in the stem and they get a little bit almost woody as they get older in the season. These things will continue to stay short and tender and lush but just superb spreading capabilities from what they do underground with the rhizomes and the way they spread out and fill in basically carpet. They create a carpet of clover and will out compete and smother out competing grasses and weeds next to them. It's quite impressive to watch, really. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was just going to say, a mature height on those things is just above ankle height. They're not knee high clovers. So it really allows your turkey poults and birds and game birds and other things to be out there working those clover fields at all times of the season. Even if you can't mow them frequently or get on them and do some maintenance to them, that they retain that lower height, which I really like.
Sure. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What your maintenance was moving forward from there throughout the year? How do you take care of those clover plots?
Yeah, so there's a lot of schools of thought on that now. I've seen in the last couple of years where there's a lot of research that says you're better off not mowing, in a lot of cases. I'm still a little bit of the old school type. When my clovers bloom beyond 40 to 60% of the field is covered in blossoms, that tells me that they're at the end of the growing cycle. They're getting ready to set on seed, which means that the top growth is starting to harden off and protein levels are peaked out and starting to diminish, which tells me palatability is decreasing. And right. So I like to mow high. I like to mow just the very tops of them off and cut the flowers and the tops of the leaves. And of course that helps you eliminate any poking weeds and grasses that are trying to jump in there and compete along. But if you've got a good, healthy stand of clover, 4 days after you mow it, it's flushed back out completely canopied over again. And so that can cause you, if you're looking at mowing frequently on that sort of a cycle where you're watching blossoms, heck, you could do that 4 to 6 times a year, a summer, if you're really staying on top of it. But you don't have to, of course. And
sure.
That's sort of like ultra high maintenance levels there. But watching the grass influx on them and watching broadleaf weeds, as we all know, clovers are awesome for the first 2 or 3 years of their life, and then they slowly start to fade as their main base gets a little bit thinner and weaker. That can be supplemented, and if you're really a hands-on guy and can spot that stuff happening, then you can frost seed a fresh stand of clover into that to reinvigorate the stand to keep it always going. But
sure.
some broadleaf control and some grass control on them, maybe once a season or twice a season if you're in if you're in an area that allows you to do that, and if your budget allows you to do that, then that's a good way to keep them, keep your soil amenities right, your pH and your fertilization and your micronutrient levels right, and don't want to mow or spray when it's hot and dry and stressful. For us, that's usually July 15th through August 30th is really, really tough and dry here, and those things will go dormant, and that's when it's nice to have the chicory mixed in as a component of that mix. The chicory will carry the day when the clover is faltering and going dormant. So I do have maybe if you're planting chicory at say 9 pounds an acre at full strength, maybe I'll have 3 or 4 pounds in there, so it's about just a little bit under half full strength rate to coexist nicely with the clover without out competing it. Anyway, that's nice to have in there too for an extra buffer, and not to mention it holds its own and it has its own attraction and its own nutrient level peaks that are different from clover.